If you were to design a grip sock with an element that you knew I would actively hate, you would design one that had a silicone or rubber or blend of the two element on both the outside of the sock and on the inside of the sock. A silicone element is my least favorite thing for the outside of a sock, and it's even worse on the inside. So imagine my surprise when Grip Elite, the pure confidence of them, came to me and were like, hey, we'd like you to review our socks. I literally went back to them and went, are you sure? This might not go well. And they're like, yep, absolutely, go for it. And it turns out that to a degree, they were correct. There are many elements about this that I like. I like the grip way more than I actually should. So that's kind of me being put in my place about internal silicone elements a little bit. But let's review the socks. Now, the logical thing to do is to start with those grips that I was talking about. This is the pair that I've been using, so we'll get out a lovely, fresh new pair. This is their packaging, no plastic on the actual packaging, which I like. They did come in plastic bags. I don't think that's necessary. I know it's there to kind of protect the sock, but less plastic, the better, in my opinion. Anyway, so the grips. Hold on. There we go. The grips. We have this silicone rubber blend dotted style of grip running all the way down the sock into as well these arrows just here. It is a fairly general cover-all pattern, and yeah, it absolutely gives you good grip underfoot. Now, I have the same problem as always with silicone and rubber grips, is that I find that when they get wet, they lose effectiveness. And these are similar, if not bad. So these work a lot better than anything that would be a cheap grip sock. So you get a lot of cheap grip socks. I'll reference Game the Edge, for example, which do a silicone element which really just goes completely out the window as soon as it gets wet or it's been worn a while. This doesn't do that, and it's retained that kind of grippiness pretty well. So happy with that. Also reasonably low profile, so you're not feeling them too much under your feet from the outside. Again, happy with that. So I would consider it to be a very good representation of that silicone and or rubber element that you get on the bottom of socks. So if we look at the inside, what we have, this is where my problem should lie, is the elements on the inner. And it is an exact replication of the outside, just repeated on the inside. Now, this is by far the best version of this that I have seen done. Because, for example, the Lux Sock V1 is the one that always springs to mind that also has this, and I hate the internal on that. The MediCaptain sock with the two internal and external grips also don't like that. This is by far the best version because it is the lowest profile, it is the least intrusive, and you can actually forget about it after a little while. It is unavoidable when you put these socks on that you are going to feel them. You absolutely are. However, unlike the others, it does kind of go away after you've worn them for a little while, and it also is effective, and I didn't have any kind of chafing or rubbing underfoot with this material. However, I'm never going to fully back this idea. I think that both logically, it doesn't make sense because this kind of material, you don't want that in contact with your skin. And functionally, I don't think it's as good as some other options. I would love to see, which we've seen in some other socks, having the silicone element on the outside, if that's what you want to stick with, and then having the internal element be a material or flocking style element. But I will say again, this is by far the best iteration of this style of sock that I have come across so far. As it is running internal and external, I would also like to see this be a bit more of an anatomical layout, especially on the internal. You don't need to have those grips really, in my opinion, running up into the arch of my foot. So having something that really corresponded to the pressure points of the way that your foot runs could be even more important in a sock like this than it would be in a traditional grip sock, like I say, because of those internal grips. But very, very positive compared to anything else that is trying to do this, and an awful lot of the silicone or rubber or blend of the two grip socks that are out there. One of the reasons I think the Grip Elite get away with it a little bit more is also because the sock itself is simply of a higher quality than anything that you're going to pick up from, for example, again, Gain the Edge or any of these kind of Amazon grip socks, anything in that cheaper silicone range where you're just splurging money for the sake of grip socks. These actually have a decent quality sock behind them. You can see it's definitely on the thicker side. You've got some additional reinforcement in these really soft kind of panels around your ankle bone. Up the back here as well, the back of the sock, there's a really soft, additionally padded area, which I think feels fantastic on feet. And the weave up through the neck area of the sock here is absolutely lovely. I've been very impressed with that. And you've got this little bit here with just the extra compression just to make sure the sock stays up, which again, I think is absolutely fantastic. So really good quality. Through the footbed here, we have a good amount of ventilation through the top, but this is the area where the sock feels the least premium, I would say, because it doesn't seem to have quite the same amount of stretch and return. So it feels like it doesn't wrap your foot quite as closely as it could around the footbed. And I think some of that simply comes from the fact that this top area just here doesn't have any additional structure to help. You're entirely reliant on this mesh base to actually return the shape of the sock to your foot. But on the whole, pretty good. And then in this toe box area as well, you got good stitching. It's nice. It looks reinforced. No issues at all. Let's get the used pair back out and you can see no problems whatsoever. Something you will see on the used pair is that they are a little bit kind of starting to fray or pull a little bit. And that's through those thicker, softer areas. And that's just simply a byproduct. There's not actually anything wrong with the sock, but it does happen quite quickly because they have these really kind of plush areas. They do pull a little bit more when you catch them or they're rubbing against your sock. For example, up through the heel area here, it just pulls a little bit faster than some of the thinner materials, but that's a trade-off that I am absolutely willing to make. Now we come to the most important part of pretty much any grip sock review. It's not the grips, it's not really the materials, it's the fit. The fit is key. And here we have a really nice fit in a lot of areas, particularly again, that neck area that I mentioned earlier, because the materials are great. Now they do say they're anatomically shaped. You can see you've got right and left labels on the sock here. However, I'm not really feeling any anatomical benefit in the sock, I will admit, when I've got them on feet, and I can't really see a huge anatomical difference in the actual design of the sock. So I'd actually like to see that kind of shaped off a little bit more in order to give a better fit. And that should or could help the footbed as a whole, or the whole kind of foot sock area, where, as I said earlier, because of these materials, it is a little bit looser around the foot than I would like. You get really great ventilation because all of this kind of more loose weave actually wraps round down onto the side of the foot quite a long way. You can see how far that comes down onto the grip element, which in some aspects could be great if you're looking for a little more ventilation, but is a bit contradictory to have quite a thick area through the neck of the sock and then have so much ventilation through the bed of the sock. It doesn't really make sense. It's kind of like trying to do both things and not succeeding at either. So here, what I would personally like to see is the retention of the top, because I think it's so good. And I'd love to see a little bit more structure through this area here, whether that's a change in the weave or actually some support elements, maybe some support elastic areas to really lock your foot into place. Because I do feel it's a little bit loose, particularly around these side areas where it runs down. The footbed itself is quite a thick footbed. It's a really, really plush, comfortable feel, which again is kind of the opposite of what you're getting with this really light mesh. I can see the logic. Go and give the real great ventilation in the sock, but it is coming at the cost of fit in the foot a little bit, and it doesn't really mesh with the rest of the sock, which is that kind of thicker, plusher vibe. So just commit to the thicker, plusher vibe and give us a little bit more structure through this footbed, and we could be on to a real winner. But again, this is still significantly better than you're going to get from an awful lot of grip socks that are around the same price that we will get to in just a second. When we're talking about the shaping, we always want to talk about the heel as well, and the heel here is fine. Now, this is gonna come down to your foot shape a little bit. I have to give a lot of praise for the fact that we are getting sizing. So you can see I have these in the UK 5.5 to 8 size. I am a UK 7 in most things, and I still found the heel to be a little on the loose side. So for me, I think that this is an area where the heel can just be designed or shaped into a little bit more of a pocket so that your heel can slip and hold into it. Whereas I feel like this very standard straight design is allowing the heel to kind of rise and kind of move a little bit more than I would want it to. As always with heels, I think there is a benefit to having grips up the heel, which we don't get here, and that probably would have exacerbated the heel issue that I'm having. Heel issue is harsh. It's not a heel issue. It's just not quite as shaped as I want it, because I personally am seeing a little bit of movement. This could come down to your foot shape, your foot size, but something definitely to mention. And again, though, that material through the heel is very, very nice. It's very padded, it's very plush, and that's one particular area where you do feel quite comfortable, even having those dual-sided grips. I also want to go back to the materials a little bit here, because I do have to give some props for the materials that they've actually used. This is not just a straightforward cotton crew sock. So you hear me a lot refer to socks as just a crew sock with grips. That's not what you're getting here. And that's a combination of things such as the build and the way that they've actually taken time to design things. And they've also put good materials in to the point where these materials are actually designed to wick sweat away from your foot. And if you're comparing that to a cotton-based crew sock, there is a huge difference here. And I think that is something that these socks have to get a huge, huge benefit, or a huge, huge bonus from me on, is using that more technical, more sweat wicking style material. And another reason why they probably don't have to have quite so much ventilation here and can give us a little bit more structure, because you are getting a decent amount of sweat wicking, especially for a sock of this kind of particular thickness and comfort. So a huge props for the material that's actually being used here. I believe they're using something called Coolmax, which is a really great material to be using, especially when we talk about the price. Pricing, these come in at €15. That's about £12, again around $15, $16. And these are so much better than the majority of socks that you're gonna go and pick up around that particular price point. They've got some offers on their website, so you can buy multiple pairs at a discounted rate. And I think they've done a great job here at keeping the price low and still giving you a really great quality product. So quality is high, price is good, materials are excellent. The grips, little bit of personal preference, but far better than anything else I've tried with that double silicone rubber blend idea. And overall, I am impressed, which takes some doing when you've got the balls to send me a pair of socks that has grips on both the inside and the outside, and we have a full conversation with me going, are you really sure you want me to review these? Because behind the scenes, give you a little peek behind the curtain, I get a lot of requests from companies to review their grip socks. And I always respond with a very similar message, which says, I would love to, however, please be aware that my reviews will be completely honest. You have no oversight. You have no input on what I say about your socks. And there's a good number of companies that kind of back away and pull out when they hear that. They just want the promotion. So the reviews don't happen. So for me to say that and for them to be aware that I dislike internal, external grips and still to go ahead anyway with the confidence that these socks would be good, I applaud them for that, and they were absolutely right. For the price, these are fantastic socks, and of course that means we have to rank them. If this is your first time here for a Boot Wizard ranking video or grip sock video, we rank all the socks at the end. We have a tier ranking system. I'll put that up on screen now. The very top tier is Foot Fetish, it just is, and the bottom tier is Moldy. These I am going to put in the middle tier, which might sound a little harsh considering all of the good things that I have said about them, but I think there's a few elements in there that could be improved, such as that kind of lockdown and fit through the main footbed area of the foot. I want to feel a little bit more secure, and there is always going to be a bit of me that rallies against having that silicone rubber grip inside and outside. So it is going to go in the middle tier, which is Nike Crew, which essentially means that I would choose these over wearing just a normal pair of Crew socks, and it is still a fantastic tier to be into. The top two tiers are incredibly difficult to get into, and I'm also going to position these to the very top end of the Nike Crew category, basically meaning they are one of the best socks in that particular category as well. So fantastic work, Grip Elite. I am very impressed with what you've done here. And they're another company that I'm now looking at. I think there's maybe 3 companies that I've said this about now, where I'm really excited to see what they do next. I think they've got a great attitude. I think they've got a great product, and I do think that they are only going to get better. And if they keep the price roughly around this ballpark, they're going to absolutely smash it. So Grip Elite, really great socks, and thanks for sending them out and having the balls to do so.